Welcome, everyone. So we are officially starting up our, how are we calling this? Our alumni panel with our alum from SBSM. And what's cool about today is I'm not going to talk very much. So my voice is going to get a rest. And our students will be speaking. I'm going to name them, and not in any order of alphabetization or anything, just the way we have them on paper. We have Magda, wave Magda, Kaye, Darla, Lauren, Erin, and Bernadette, who will officially be speaking today. And what'll happen, for some of you, most of you are watching this, I'm most likely in speaker view. So as they speak, their videos will pop up. That will be for the recording. Now, if you're here live, you can obviously watch this in gallery to see everyone, or in speaker. So how you choose to watch is completely up to you. And just as a general, if you are new to me, I'm Irene, a Lyon, and I am the founder of Smartbody SmartMind. And Smartbody SmartMind is a 12-week online curriculum course that I have been running for a while. Kind of started around 2012-ish, 13-ish. And then it just grew and grew and grew. It used to be 5 weeks, actually, for those of you that don't know that history. And then it was 8 weeks long. And we've stuck with 12 weeks because we feel that's a good amount of time to do a semester of schooling and learning. And that's exactly what SBSM is. It's learning. It's education, which is so different when we think about we're going to go and work on our healing. We think we go to a doctor, we go to a healer, we go to a therapist. Those are all important, right, for certain things. But this is a very different process, SBSM is, of teaching yourself how to become your own medicine and teaching yourself how to really take charge of your internal physiology and how you engage with the external. And we will hear about this from our people today, from our lovely women who are here with us. We had John, who was going to, some of you know John, he was one of our beta students and he wasn't able to make it. So we will channel him in energetically. What I want to do is I'm going to start by, actually, Bernadette, I heard you. So do you want to start? No, it's great. Do you want to start by introducing yourself, when you came into SBSM, and maybe speak for, I don't know, 3 to 4 or 5 minutes just on your journey. And that's what we'll do with everyone. We'll go through everyone so everybody has a chance to say whom they are, why they came into SBSM. Don't be afraid also, alum, to say why at the beginning you thought the work was crazy. And, like, what is this that I've signed up for? Be completely honest. Okay. Be completely honest, the difficult things. And then those here who have questions for them, if you have a specific question for Erin or Lauren or Darla, put their name in and say, this is for so-and-so, this is my question. But if it's a general question, and if one of the panelists sees the question in the chat, feel free to answer it. Sound good? All right. Bernadette.
Okay. So, hello, my name is Bernadette Broadway, and you guys are going to get like a real live experience of a dysregulated nervous system right now. And what I'm doing is just allowing it. So I don't like to speak in public. I don't like all eyes on me, even though this is great work and it's interesting and I absolutely love Irene. I don't like this because of what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
So what I'm learning is I can feel it. I can feel it here. I want to just run right now. About a minute before Irene started talking, here comes a headache. When I was setting up, everything was fine. I sit down, I get into this mode. I'm like, oh crap. So my system is off and I don't know where to go with it. So what I learned doing the 12 weeks over and over and over, this will be the 4th time, I'm in it.
Yeah.
Ta-da, this is it. And I love it and I hate it. And I love Irene and I hate Irene sometimes. I seem to always be mad at Irene. And then I work through it and I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. I'm getting this. So this is what it's like to just feel this gunk and just to be here. But this last time was the hugest aha and the hugest breakthrough. When we finished with our 12 weeks, I did the Smartbody SmartMind at the same time as the beta. And I loved it. But when we finished, Irene sent us off with some really great words. Okay, great, exciting, encouraging. But one of the things she said was, and just remember, have some self-compassion. And this was in May. And at the time she said it, I was kind of like, wah, wah. It's a little boring. That's flat. It didn't feel very steps. It just felt like a feel-good thing to say. So then I was really disappointed. And then for about a week, I'm like, well, that sucks. I was really disappointed in how she gave me that phrase of self-compassion. It's something I didn't want or need or think that was a part of this work, or I wanted more of the let's do the A, B, and C. Well, I stewed about that for a while and then just kind of went on about life. Somewhere, I don't know, June, July-ish, I had, I don't even know how to explain it, guys. I had something emerge from inside. It was an absolute change feeling. And it was a self-compassion that I never asked for or wanted or thought I needed. It came out of me. And for the first time, really in my life, I saw me. I saw it. I saw my whole story in a whole new light. And it's almost like the fight ended in that moment. The fight to get this, the fight for the steps and the next thing and the this and the that. It was, okay, this is the reality of my life. I got really jacked up in my head because of trauma. There's no way out of it. I'm in it, working through it. And you know what? That's okay. I really came to a peace that I've never experienced with this work ever, until something in me just went, whoop. The reason I'm saying that is because I did not engage in life 100%, because what stopped me was I don't have the ability to take information, process it, and have good outcomes with learning. So I have gone to college beyond 7 years and have not graduated. I'm in and out. I stop. I do this because everything shuts me down. Everything out there is so overwhelming, it debilitates me. When this bubbled up in me in June and July, something just said, wave the white flag. It's okay that you have this messed up brain now. You're working through it, but it's okay. Don't judge it and don't fight it and don't try and attack it. Two really huge things happened for me, and I brought props. The first one, this is a pickleball racket. Pickleball is a great game. It's very active, but there's a lot of things to remember and there's a lot of things to learn. So for a couple of years, I'm like, I can't take that on. My brain stumbles. Why even try? So my husband and I signed up for a free class. I thought, all right, I'll just go. But what I did this time was I attacked it from a new position. I went to the teacher and I said, hey, I just want to let you know if I look at you funny, it's because I'm not tracking. I really want to do this, but if I ask 1,000 questions, it's because it's just not getting there yet. That was a part of the self-compassion that I've never done before. I'm in my 4th week of playing pickleball and we love it, because every time I go and there's new people that I have to meet, I go up to them and say, hey, just to let you know, I might be a little slow at remembering the rules or remembering where I am on the court. So if you would just tell me, then I'll do it. See, I'm engaged now. I'm still dysfunctional in my head. but I'm actually living it in a whole new way. The second prop I brought, and this is huge. When I first started with Irene, that was over 3 years ago. And one of my goals was to be a teacher. I'm having a hard time finishing that college degree. In Colorado, you can be a substitute teacher without a 4-year degree in some districts. So I applied for that. Actually, I started the process, did the background check. I opened up my computer and realized I need to come up with a resume, and I need to come up with several things to finish this application. And I couldn't do it. And I started crying because here I am, can't participate in life, blah, blah, blah. The second year rolls around. I've already done the background check. I start with Irene again. I thought, you know what? This year I'm going to do it. I started the process again, total overwhelm it. And now I'm even madder because how do I participate in life? This really sucks. Third year, I finished with Irene. I said, this is it. And I'm going to go through this whether I'm crying or not. So I brought on help. I had people help me write the resume. I asked 1,000 questions on what it means to fill this, and this out. I finished my first week of subbing this week. So here's my teacher's apple. This is unbelievable because I'm letting it come, excuse me, from here with a different point of view. It's okay, I'm flawed. I'm getting it. It's tracking. It is making sense. And I've stopped just the self-hatred, the self-attack, the meanness to me, right? Everybody else is so great because they have their master's and their PhD and blah. This is me.
Wow.
And that's it.
Thank you, Bernadette. And congratulations on your first week, because I know you were working on that.
Yeah.
And what I want to say is, gosh, those little kiddos are so lucky. I think are they elementary school kids that you're working with, or?
Yes. And already, Irene, I'm doing this with them. Me regulated first with me, you. So when that is intact, now I go into the classroom. It's amazing.
Amazing. I'm crying. So thank you so much. And go pickleball. That's amazing too. And before we go to the next person, what I want to just, for everybody here who's new, what Bernadette just shared is the effect of how this ripples out. It's not just about healing of course, it's about healing our gut and our heart rate variability and our sensations and the chronic stuff and the psych stuff. It's about learning to be more regulated so then those internal things can shift. What it's also doing, it's allowing us to be active participants with our communities. And we need that so darn much. And we need people who are regulated to do this stuff, especially with kids. And I have no doubt that the other employees and teachers and aides that are in your environment will start to talk to you about this, and then you will spread that information to them. So it's beautiful to see how a healing program, quote unquote, for the nervous system, it is about us. It has to start first with us, and then it ripples out. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love what you prepared. Even if you were nervous, it was impossible to know because you were just being raw and authentic. So thank you.
Thank you.
Kaye, you're right beside Bernadette on my screen. So I'm looking at you. Do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for that, Bernadette. It was really moving and resonates deeply as an ex-teacher, how I want to start. I am Kaye. I'm in North Yorkshire, a tiny, tiny rural village, farming village in England. And I discovered Irene and Smartbody SmartMind in acute burnout from I'm really emotional actually now after hearing what to see you at the start of your teaching career, and I came into this. Gosh, that's really got me actually. Hang on. at the end of my teaching career in Burnout in 2016 was the acute burnout, but I found Irene in 2017. So when I started my journey with Smartbody SmartMind, I was on the highest dose of pregabalin, which is a pain medication that I could have been put on a tiny 7-stone frame. It wasn't such a good thing that my GP had done. I'd say I was almost monosyllabic. I had 3 teenagers in the house, and I had to take redundancy from my teaching career. So that's where I began in 2017. And I have done Smartbody SmartMind every year bar 1, where I felt I needed to take a break and do integration. And I can honestly say that I wouldn't be here, I don't think, if I hadn't done Smartbody SmartMind and actually started to work with my nervous system, because I was on the road to, well, I was on the road to real serious illness. So I started doing bearing in mind I have a master's and I'm highly educated and I'm used to study, and I did the first round like full speed ahead, and was still in functional freeze and really none of it was really sticking. I couldn't even do the basic exercises. So I'd say it took me 2 years to slow down enough to start to realize I only needed to do the first 4 lessons for another year before I could then build on the education and the integration in my body. So it is, what can I say about the work? I can say that it actually changed completely how I went on and have taught since. I go slowly as a teacher now. But also it really has showed me that education is not here, it's actually in the body, and the true learning and true kind of discovery happens bottom up. We come in at the nervous system level, we gain some regulation, and our cognition, our critical thinking and our creative thinking comes on board. I'm so overwhelmed from actually speaking. It's really surprised me today how it's caught me off guard again. Remembering what you said, Bernadette, but also my own experience. What I can say is I'm a completely different person now. I'm 2 stone heavier. That's the start. I don't have to liquidize my food anymore to digest it. And also I'm completely off all pain medication. If I hadn't been doing the Smartbody SmartMind, I wouldn't have been able to come off the medication that I was on. So it took 2 years before I felt I had enough regulation to actually come off that medication. The biggest impact, though, and I'm going to try and say this without getting overwhelmed, is actually the impact it had on my children, because I came to it really late. In terms of my children, they were 14, 15 and 16, maybe a year less than that. And they were in the child and adolescent mental health services here. They were on their road to burnout themselves. But through me regulating, it's meant that I've been able to support my children there are 2, one's just finished his master's, the second, she's gone on to do her master's, and the third's at Oxford and doing dual languages. They would never have got there if I hadn't brought regulation into the house. So there's so many levels to this work. Yes, I'm well, I'm thriving. I'm starting a new career of taking this into education and health services here in the UK. But the greatest thanks I want to give to Irene was the gift of health to my family lines, and them being able to fulfill their own destiny, I think, or life through this work. I am surprised how emotional I am this time. I've done this before. So please forgive the speed or the rawness or the activation as I speak with you today. Thank you.
Wowza. Thanks, Kaye. I'm emotional again. And I actually, let's just feel that. I'm going to feel it because this is going to be, so thank you so much. And I'll talk a little bit to your journey in a second, but this current round we're going into, for those that are seeing this when we're doing it live or the recording, it'll be the 14th time we've run the course. And I'll be honest, when this came out, when I created it, I was told by many of my teachers, you can't do that. You shouldn't do that. There's no way you can do online trauma healing. So, you know, and that's fine. Everybody has their right for expression, free speech, First Amendment, right? Go ahead and say what you feel and think, but sometimes there's something in you that sparks and says, no, this is what I have to do. And I got into doing the online work because I was on the verge of burnout from seeing clients over and over again. And I realized, for those that don't know the origin story, it was not enough for me to be with someone 1 hour a week for 5 years. It wasn't enough. And so what's so cool, again, we'll hear from the next person, is, as Kaye said, she's shifting her lineage, her ancestry. Her children won't have to do this work. Sure, they'll still have to do some healing work, and they have to eat well and exercise and have their own souls guide them to their journey, but they're not going to have to spend the same amount of time that mom had to. And I'm not a biological mother, but I can only imagine if we are biological parents, we don't want our kids to suffer and struggle. We want them to have lives that are full of joy and goodness, so that things are just a little bit better for them. And I can honestly say the students that I hear from, their kids' lives are not just a little bit better, exponentially better. And as utopic as that might seem, the more we do this, it doesn't take long to heal a society. So, you know, there's a very big picture here, along with our own personal healing. And I mean, I love what you said, Kaye, you don't have to liquefy your diet. What she means by that is her gut is healed. She can eat solid foods, which is exactly how our body is supposed to be. So thank you, Kaye. And the other thing I want to mention is there's emotion in the alum, but we're still able to be here and talk and show up. That is real window of tolerance. We throw that word around a lot in the nervous system world. That's the ability to be with the little butterflies, be with the emotion, and continue the process of engaging. And that's really what we're after in this work. So thank you, Kaye. Thanks, Bernadette. Lauren, do you want to, I'm going to make sure you can unmute yourself. Let's hear your story. And I haven't met Lauren like this one-on-one on Zoom, so it's great to finally meet her.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Irene. So I'm feeling the nerves myself. And it's funny, I am actually, I was an elementary school teacher too. So lots of teachers here. And I also dealt with a lot of burnout, and teaching is a lot. And I think, Bernadette, like bringing your, like just thinking of having someone regulated in a classroom is huge, because I can say that I think it was so hard for me because I didn't have that. And there's so many, like having so many little people with so many emotions, you know, and if you're a parent, you understand that too, that how much it can overwhelm you. So, my real journey though with this, so I did Irene's, the 21-day tune-up in 2020. And I actually looked back this morning. I started it the first week of September in 2020. And then like a month later, I was laid off during COVID. So that like threw my nervous system all off. And I think I just kind of let the tools go in a way. And I felt like all my protective things go back into high gear. And I had been learning about a lot of this stuff for a few years. I got, I guess it was 2018, just kind of like broke down, like physically, emotionally, didn't understand what was happening. And I see it now as like living in like that functional freeze and overdrive for so long, and then all of a sudden like my body couldn't take it anymore. And I think there's a lot of components. Like I was living in a moldy apartment, and had been through a lot of like big life changes, and I think I had enough internal safety starting to build just from having like kindness towards myself, that like a lot of stuff started coming up that I'd never addressed. And I think when you don't have the education that like Smartbody SmartMind provides, you just think you're going crazy. Like, what is happening when you're able to do so much and then all of a sudden you can't? And going from doctor to doctor, and there's no answers, and there's no one that can help you in any way. And it makes emotion come up for me now, because I think I forget sometimes like how challenging that was, and how just exhausting. And I learned how to advocate for myself though. And I learned that like there was a sliver in me, and I think it's always been there, of like, there's a wisdom in this. My body knows what it's doing, and it's not wrong. And I don't know how I came across Irene, but I'm so thankful that I did. And I was into nutrition and exercise, and kind of the like, I don't know, picture of health. I think when you think of what health is and what we do for health, the little narrow bubble of what we do for health. Yeah, and so that's kind of what in my mind too. I was like, I'm doing all the things right, you know? So then when all that happened, there's like a change in identity and a surrender, like, of so much. And I think coming into it, you kind of have to have that, just like an openness to another way, you know, because a lot of it is so much of learning a different way of being, and letting a lot of things go. And luckily I was at that point where I was willing to do that. And yeah, so started Smart. It was a long journey from 2020 till last year. I started Smartbody SmartMind September 2022, so exactly a year ago. And from that like year and a half, 2 years, I went into like full survival mode again, and it was a challenging time. And I still had tools though, and it was so interesting to see it with the awareness that I had of all the nervous system stuff, because I could actually tell. I was like, oh, I'm like going into functional freeze, or this is what this is. And so I was able to care for it in moments, but I didn't have that solid place to land just because of life circumstances. But it was interesting and gave me a lot of just learning and more understanding of myself, to be able to like see myself and witness myself and be with myself to the best of my ability during that time. But I was doing a lot of practices that were too much, I think is a big thing for me too, is learning as someone who never knew my limits or knew how to honor my limits, learning the importance of slow and like steady work, and not having these like huge, I think in our world too, like we want these big, large changes and results and quick fix type things, and just moving away from all of that and seeing just the small, it's just so much like these small daily things of listening and like being kind to yourself and being patient, and leaning into resources. Like I'm always having my resources.
Yeah.
Even here for today, I like have my little things that provide just that safety and support for myself. And so I had a list of some diagnosed, some not, of what you get with chronic illness and all of that. And I think just so much of it was related to stress, and have healed a lot, and some things not. I still can't overdo it. And in a way, it feels like a blessing because I have to listen to myself. I have to listen to my body. There's no getting around that. So it's kind of like that little thing that reminds me of when I'm not. So I'm just really grateful for this work, and continue to check back in and go through lessons, and just see it as something that's a commitment and a gift in life. So
Thanks, Lauren.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And thank you so much. And Lauren, you're newer to SBSM. You started last year. So, this process you're on, you're still listening to your limits and really having to honor them. And as you said, having the education makes you realize that you're not crazy or insane. As you said, it's like, my system has been overloaded in functional freeze for so long. And as you said, you were doing all the right things that popular, press culture tells us to do. But then there's this other little piece, as you mentioned, that wasn't taught to us in that health world. So I'm glad you spoke to that, because I have no doubt that there are some people that are falling into that category as well. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. I think it helps removes the shame aspect so much of it too.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
If something's wrong with me story that we can have. And when you see the wisdom and what's there.
Yes. Cool. Yep. Okay. I'm going to go.
I lost sound.
Oh,
there you are. Okay.
Hi.
It went for a minute. So I'm assuming you're talking to me.
Yes, to you. Give us your, let's hear the short story of your process. And we did a few other talks with you. So people want to go through the full length of your crazy healing journey, they can do that. But give us the cliff notes for where you've been and where you are now.
Okay. So how I ended up with this is I had an accident in 2010. The trauma to my body created traumatic Syringomyelia, which for people who don't know what that word is, and most people won't, because there's like 1% of the world who have to deal with this. It is a tear in the sheath around your spinal cord that fills with spinal fluid. So it creates chronic pain, which threw me into a whole bunch of other stuff. And just symptoms. By the time I found you, I was having new symptoms every 2 weeks. When I first started in 2017, the fall of 2017, within the first month, that part stopped. And then as I went on, I like a lot of what other people have said, because I think all of it's applicable to all of us. I'm a high achiever, or was a high achiever. I've had to learn a whole new way of life. And this is a lifestyle. It's not a quick fix. It's something that you learn and you implement in your life in every area that you can imagine. And it affects every area that you can imagine. because of these, some of these stories have been so in depth, I'm like, okay, where do I go with this? How do I make this understandable? I guess for me, because of what I deal with, chronic pain is forever. I know that's never going to go away. So one of the biggest things that for me that I have gained is the ability to deal with the pain without all the medications. I don't handle all of that really well anyway. I had to look for more natural things. So when I found this, the biggest things, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget any of them, the biggest things that I have gained that I think help people with chronic pain, and I think it's important for people who deal with chronic pain to know this is what you're going to get from having this. You're going to be able to connect your body and your mind with an intentional curiosity instead of being afraid of it. You're going to learn how to use movement gently to keep your neurotransmitters talking a positive way to each other without physically stressing out your body, which to me was one of the biggest things starting Smartbody SmartMind. That exercises are so simple, a 3-year-old can do them. They're not stressful, but to me it was like, how in the world can this possibly help? But it does. You're going to learn how to pace your energy more effectively. And because I do have chronic pain, with what I deal with Syringomyelia, it's debilitating. So it's extremely important to know how to pace my energy, because if I do too much, it could be weeks before I have the same level that I lost. It gives you a stronger spiritual connection with yourself, which is that being compassionate, knowing how to think kindly, talk kindly to yourself. Self-talk is a big deal. And I think Smartbody SmartMind is extremely helpful in teaching us how to do compassionate self-talk. That's been huge for me. It also helps you connect better with other people, as they've already spoken. That's a spiritual connection. And it helps you connect more strongly to your higher power of God, however you think of God as being. And the reason why this is important is because it instills hope and confidence that you are not alone and that you have the ability to do whatever you need to do. And then the other thing, it gives you a greater capacity to handle your stressors and your triggers without adding more trauma. And frequently it automatically heals past trauma in the process, even if you don't remember the past events, which I have had PTSD. So from childhood trauma. So for me, that was huge because I had done 20 years of the cognitive behavior therapy. And there was always something that just wasn't missing. So every time I had a new trauma happen, I had to go through the whole thing all over again. I don't have to do that with Smartbody SmartMind. It's not necessary. And I love that part. So if I want to talk about it, I can. If I don't have to. And I heal anyway. The other thing that's huge with Smartbody SmartMind is their stellar support. Your support team is just beyond amazing to me. And like one of the other ladies said, because it was my nervous system that was so dramatically affected from the traumatic event that happened to me with the accident, all the doctors kept saying, you're fine, there's nothing wrong with you. And I ended up going to a psychiatrist because I thought if it's all in my head, I'm going to fix that. I'm not a person to just sit around and wallow in self-pity. And she said, no, Darla, you're doing everything right. You're doing all the skills that you have learned. This is really in your body. So that's important. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And then one of the other big things is you become more optimistic about your present and your future, because you do have that sense of hope. And I think the hugest part for me with this is Smartbody SmartMind is about healing from the inside out. It's not about covering up what your symptoms. It's not about trying to make it so you can press on and do a better job and keep going no matter how you feel. That's not what this is about at all. That's not how this works. And because you're healing from the inside out, you heal from the core, then what you heal actually stays healed. And then you can move farther. So for me, this past year, the biggest thing I have gained is capacity. I feel like I've been doing a lot of integration, and I had a car accident last week. It was minor, but it was huge to me because I was able to process it while I went through it. Instead of pushing myself forward and saying, you're fine, there's nothing wrong, it's just a small, no, I yelled at the lady, not where she could hear me in the car. When I saw her, she was backing up toward me, and I laid on my horn and yelled, "Don't hit me." She did anyway, but that's part of the processing. It's part of being able to get through, say what you need to say. I was one of those people before I started Smartbody SmartMind. You could step on my toe and I wouldn't even say ouch. I would just look at you. Now, no, I'm not like that. Now, if I don't like something, I say so. I don't like the way you're talking to me. I don't like the way this is happening. I need this to be this way, or I need it to be that way. And that's huge. That's just a really huge, huge piece. I don't even know how to explain it, of how much difference that I have had from this. And I just thank you so much for doing it. And to those people that told you that it wasn't possible to do this online, I say pooey. Yes, it is, because I believe I wouldn't even be alive if I wouldn't have found this, because I was in stage 3 of adrenal fatigue. And the next stage is your body shuts down and you die. So yes, you can. And just like those doctors told me that it wasn't possible for me to heal, I didn't believe it. And I said pooey. And I think those of us who have the courage to say pooey.
That's amazing. Thank you, Darla.
Yeah.
Pooey to them. And what
Yeah.
I want to really highlight is you spoke about the accident that you had last week. I'm glad you're okay. And that's actually a huge part. When we get this regulation and knowledge on board, moving forward, we are much less likely to get post-traumatic stress because we know what to do in the moment.
Yes.
And we've been so brainwashed, is a strong word, but it's accurate, to not know how to take care of our bodies when acute stress occurs. So in addition to healing the current body system and past stuff, it will allow us to be better advocates for ourselves moving forward. Whether it's a big accident or even just a little cut on your finger, you will take care of it better. You will nurture yourself better. And that is so huge. So thank you. I'm going to read out, we'll go to Magda. Do you want to be up next? And then we'll get to Erin. Thank you, Kaye, for responding to some things in the chat. Someone had asked about chronic pain and fibromyalgia, and Darla, you just spoke to the chronic pain. And I'm going to read this for those who can't see the chat. Kaye wrote, "I had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia and chronic pain. I've read Dr. Sarno and tried many therapies and approaches, and SBSM is the only approach that reduced the pain, the tension, the irritable bowel, etc. I'm off all pain meds. I feel I don't need any other learning now." And that's a big claim, because there's so many other people that came before me that created work that has helped others and will still continue to help others. And what I'm seeing now is our humanity, we're getting a little smarter. We have to work at deeper levels that go beyond just emotion or just sensation or just thought. It has to all be included into the process. And as you mentioned also, Darla, the talk therapy wasn't enough. The mental stuff wasn't enough. It all does stem from the body. We still have to be aware of our mindset and how our habits and our thoughts might seep in and sabotage us. But when you have the connection to the sensations and the interoception in your system, it actually gives you the warning sign that you're maybe going down a path of self-destruction. And then you pull yourself out of it via coming back to the body, coming back to the environment. And so it is an all-encompassing way of learning how to be with yourself that hits on all of these humanly characteristics, right? We're not just animals and feeling beings. We're also cognitive, creative, intelligent beings that we also have to take care of those aspects. So I wanted to mention that. So thanks for that answer, Kaye. All right, Magda.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
I'm feeling so grateful and so full and so in love with all of you who have shared before. Thank you so much. I've been so moved with your stories. And I'm based in Warsaw, Poland, in Central Europe. And I came across Irene first, I think around 2 years ago. And at first, I was interested, but something didn't click. And then I think after like a month or two, something did click. And then I just went on marathons with the YouTube channel. And I actually know a couple of people who had kind of this trajectory that they come across Irene and they kind of dip their toes in and out. And then suddenly something just goes whoom and they're in. And so that was my story. And I first started with 21 days. With the 21 days nervous system tune-up in December 2021. And then in February 2022, so last year in spring, I joined SBSM. And I also did the Sciintuitive beta module this spring. So it's been a pretty intense time of learning, and I can relate to so many of the things that others have shared. I came into this work mostly through the lens of emotional and relational challenges. I do have a bit of like, I've had a bit of physical stuff, but it's not been the main driving factor behind like trying to find tools. And I have tried a lot of different things from the so-called self-development industry through psychotherapy, kind of spiritual stuff, like all sorts of different tools. And I'm so glad to have come across Irene and this education and this practice specifically, because it's just really amazing. It's been over a year and a half of basically daily practice, whether it's practicing through the audios that we get through the course, or just listening to a video on YouTube, or to one of the calls or the Q&A calls that we also get access to through SBSM. And it's the first thing that I found, that after a year and a half of daily engagement, I'm so in love with this work. And I get more and more in love with this process, even though it is hard and it can get painful. And I do feel a lot of discomfort at times, like over spring and summer. I think I had like 2 months where I basically had low-key anxiety 24/7 every day. But by that time, I knew what was happening. I knew that those were old layers of stuff coming up. I was able to be functional. I just felt the tension. It wasn't comfortable. But that was it. Like, you know, it needed to come out, right? Better out than in, as you say, Irene, with a lot of the things, not just survival stress energy. And so I don't even know where to start. Like the changes, I guess I'm more of this kind of subtle changes story, because I didn't come into it with like a really big crisis moment. But to be honest, like the more I regulate, the more I look back at my life and I see that I've almost always been in crisis. I just didn't realize. So those were ups and downs all the time, but that was the way I knew how to be. That was the only modeling I saw around me. So it felt normal. And now it's so crazy, because after every couple of months, I kind of think like, okay, now I'm in my true capacity. And like, now I'm going at my own pace. And like, fast forward 2 or 3 months later, I'm like, oh, okay, no, that wasn't going at my own pace. And that wasn't my true capacity. I was actually still very much in survival responses almost all the time. And so it's really beautiful, because I remember the first time that I logged into the SBSM course website, I had this huge somatic process actually, just through watching the kind of intro video, how this website works. And I remember just feeling that I've arrived. And that's the thing, like I do get a lot of painful intensity emotionally, sometimes physically. And I do get those moments that we now kind of call, I guess, in this world, kind of freezy state. So kind of hopeless, helpless. But the thing is that it used to maybe last a couple of weeks. Then last year, after just 21 days and a bit of SBSM, it started going down to maybe like 2 or 3 days. And now it sometimes moves through within a couple of hours or half an hour. And the cool thing is that I kind of catch myself thinking certain things. I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm in freeze. That's why I'm thinking this. That's why I'm feeling like this. That's like, those thoughts are actually not true. It's just, this is where my system, like my nervous system is at right now. And so that, like Lauren, I think, said, it takes away the shame of the experience. It takes away the burden of thinking that I'm broken, that there's something wrong with me. And to be fair, I still sometimes have those self-aggressive thoughts, but it's like literally they come in and a second later, there is a different voice that comes on and says, no, you know, that's not true. You know, you're healing. You're okay, baby. Like, you've got the tools. And I've been processing a breakup in the past 2 months. And sometimes it was really intense because also a lot of kind of old stuff, like when we have those, I think that's Darla, I think you also said it, as we process the present stuff, a lot of the old stuff can kind of bubble up to the surface with it. So I've had that. And when I had those really difficult moments, the thought that just kept on coming to me is that it will never be worse than this. Like, this is the worst you get, because it only gets better from here. Because you already have the tools that you know work. So actually what you're feeling right now, it's the worst it's gonna get. Like, it's, you know, it's just healing and more ease and more comfort going forwards. So that's pretty amazing. So yeah, I guess I can finish here. And yeah, I also want to thank you, Irene, because I'm in training and professional training with one of your teachers right now. And actually in June, I was at a training and the person was repeating that you cannot heal by yourself. You cannot heal through audio. You cannot heal, to a point that I was there. I was like, shit, have I not been healing the past year and a half? Like, and I had this moment of like, wait, what? And then I went back like, no, of course not. Like, you know, you're so different. Of course, you know, it is possible. So whether it's just doing the audios, whether it's doing like a live practice with someone, I know how that works. I see no difference really. Well, okay, maybe not no difference. There are different realms of experience, but I can heal and process just as much during one-on-one therapy, which I've also started in one of the somatic modalities, and doing audios, and actually by myself, because after, I guess, we've done enough, whatever enough is for every individual person, of the guided practices, things just start bubbling up by themselves. So actually, whether it's with someone, whether it's with Irene's voice in my ear, or just by myself tuning into my body, or even not, because oftentimes it just kind of comes, it's all healing and it's all beautiful and it's also worth it. So thank you for listening to that pioneering spirit.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you, Magda, so much. And Erin, you're up next. And what I'm going to say before, I want to highlight what Magda said. The beginning, you said you've had this low key anxiety for quite a while. That's healing. So that isn't backwards movement. And I'm going to say, I personally have had the most amount of low level, quote unquote, anxiety. It's really fight, flight. It's the freeze coming off. I've had it so big in the last 3 years, and it's lessened and lessened and lessened, that even with all my knowledge, sometimes that fear, it's like, do I need to go to the hospital? Right? Of course, I don't have to. And the interesting thing, and I'll share this, I was diagnosed with a heart murmur a couple of years ago, which they thought had been there forever. And there's a part of me that knew that some of these things are dysregulation. It was, and this is my story, but I will share it. It was a prolapsed mitral valve in the heart. And I sort of went digging into some of the old texts from my predecessors, and I found a passage in Robert Scaer's book, Trauma Spectrum, great book, he's passed, but great book, where he postulates that prolapsed mitral valve is a result of dysregulation. Just like you might have acid reflux come from your stomach into your esophagus. It's the tubes not working properly. They're out of sync. And I just had a checkup because I still go see a doctor regularly for checkups, and she couldn't find the heart murmur. And she prides herself in finding heart murmurs because she's from South Africa, and she finds them in folks who have had, I think, malaria. And I was like, oh, interesting, it's not there. And she was actually stumped because every time she's heard my heart the last 4 years, she hears it. And who knows? But I share that because our potential to heal is really quite huge, but we have to go, I believe, to these levels of depth at the nervous system level. And when these low-level anxieties come up, as Magda said, and I have no doubt that a lot of our panelists have also felt this is old stuff coming through. But if we don't understand it, we might be quick to try to fix it or mask it or take a med. And there's nothing wrong with taking meds when we might need to. But there's so much that we can do when we understand, whoa, this is probably some early trauma that I have no memory of. But yep, it was probably there because I know parents were in this situation and it wasn't good. There's no memory of it, but this is probably what it is. So I want to really mention that because sometimes we might think something is not getting better because we feel things getting more intense. And that's not always necessarily true. Okay, Erin, come on board, lady.
Yes, hello, Irene
Hi.
and everyone. So nice to be here. And yeah, everyone's stories have been just, yeah, so touching. I can relate to so much. Yeah, so just to give, in case it's helpful for people, a very tiny bit of context. When I was a baby, so about a month old, I had an allergic reaction to a formula that lasted about 10, 11 months that made me incredibly ill. And until I found Irene in 2020, I had no idea that that first year of my life was dictating how I felt in my mind and body pretty much 24/7. Like my system so extremely was wired really from the beginning because of this and other relational traumas towards unsafety and danger and threat that throughout all of my childhood into my adulthood, not only was I dealing with all sorts of severe like physical illnesses and symptoms from like what I had been through as a baby, but also I was in such a high functional freeze that it was almost like anytime I tried to connect with another person in front of me, there was this like invisible wall in which I couldn't even take in their system. It was just, it's even hard to put into words, but there was just always such chaos and overwhelm internally that I felt like I was just constantly feeling either so anxious and panicky until really that would burn me out. And then I'd switch over to like so shut down, so exhausted, so depressed. Or a lot of times I'd feel both at the exact same time. And I'd just be operating in this like deer in the headlights, you know, like I'm sitting here in this meeting trying to talk or know what to say and I just can't do it. Or I just am so frozen. And so it was very difficult to say the least. And before I found SBSM in 2020, I had done at that point like 7 or 8 years of talk therapy, coaching, healing retreats, EMDR, and, you know, seen all sorts of therapists, specialists, psychiatrists, doctors, and nothing was holding. It was like I'd just get a little bit of relief or feel like I had a cognitive understanding of myself, but then my nervous system would just take over again and I would feel so unsafe and really not only unsafe, but not connected to my own body, not connected to others around me, not even connected to my environment. Like I could sit in a room all day and not know anything around me. I never, you know, noticed the trees, never noticed what was on my desk, just it's so much chaos. And so SBSM, and specifically not only SBSM, but the knowledge that it gives and you give, Irene, around this real early developmental piece was so life-changing for me because I had never heard anyone speak to it. It had never been explained to me. And in a span of a year, or well, really it's been, yeah, now 3 years. I've done it 3 times and then did the beta program in the spring. I went from thinking that my whole life that I was just like broken or not able to heal, like something was wrong with me, like I was losing my mind. Especially in beginning of 2020, I sustained a head injury, and then that brought up so much of the early stuff, like within an instant, that I was in, at that point, really like extreme terror, I guess I would call it, and almost having these like somatic flashbacks of like fear of death or feeling like I was dying. And if it weren't for you, Irene, explaining that these early memories can come up in this way, I probably would have done all these different things to push it back down. But instead, I used all the tools and everything we learned in SBSM to really, as weird as it sounds, like invite in the terror, like invite in all these massive emotions that were so horrifying. And so many people were saying to me, like, why aren't you fixing this? Why aren't you doing something to make this better or get rid of it? And it was truly because of this work that I knew, if I don't allow this to finally come out, it will continue to dictate my life forever. And so it was, it's a hard journey. Like you were saying, Irene, this work is it's not simple or easy. And sometimes things have to feel so much more intense first. And for me, it was a very intense, like, 1.5 years of, every day letting these massive emotions come to the surface. And somatic responses to those emotions. But I'm so grateful to say now it feels like finally I'm confidently so on the other side that I don't deal with daily terror or these big fluctuations in my system. Like, it's very much this I'm just so confident in being able to stay regulated, and then if a stressor comes in, I can move through it with ease, and allow it to pass, and just allow, as other panelists have been saying, allow it to be there. And then in the allowing it to be there and having that capacity, it moves through so much more quickly. And then I'm back to baseline. And then I have the capacity to do things like actually feel close to others in relationships, feel connected to my own body, connected to my purpose. Truly everything has changed in my life in the last 3 years. And I most of all feel like I know who I am, which, when you're in this constant level of chaos and overwhelm, you don't know. It's so hard to know what you want or what you desire or what you like to do. It's just survival nonstop. And so I think I'm most grateful for that, just feeling like, oh, this is me, this is Erin, this is what my personality is, and to be able to bring that, into the world, without getting so overwhelmed and shutting down and just pulling away. So yeah, thank you for that, Irene, and this work.
Oh, you're so welcome, Erin. And your story really touches my heart, as all of yours, of course, do. But the piece about you being a baby and getting an allergy to your formula and essentially not being able to be nourished for 10 months is huge. And what often occurs when we have these developmental early traumas is, because you did survive, people don't think about it. It's like, oh, she's fine because she survived that. And yet at this point, the normal medical community fails to address that kind of trauma. And it's just so beautiful to see your vibrancy. And like you said, you know who you are. I've seen you shift between the last time I saw you in spring and now tenfold. So there's just so much more color and life in your face, and it's wonderful to see. So thank you for continuing to do the work. Someone asked, I have a question that I'd love to pose to the panel. I'm going to read it. It's in the chat. And then whoever wants to answer that, you can just unmute yourself and we can have a discussion about it. And the question is from Jennifer: I've been doing the 21-day program since December 2022. I need to go super slow. Yes, it's very important. It's helping a ton. Awesome. The history: newborn abdominal surgery. So Jennifer, you had abdominal surgery as a newborn. I have depression, anxiety, insomnia, and have had a psychiatric hospitalization in May 2023. I want to do SBSM. However, I'm scared that it will be too much and more survival stress will bubble up that I'm not ready for. I'm thinking it may be better to wait until 2024 to do SBSM next year. Your thoughts? So I'm going to just hit a little piece, and then whoever wants to, maybe you can put up your hand and I can see you. But you do have to follow your gut and your impulse. And I will also say that there is no pressure to move through SBSM at the pace that we release the modules. And so it might be that if you can join now, you make a pact with yourself that you listen to your system, but that you just do 10% or 5%. We have some alumni who will say, I have only moved through, and I say only in quotes, the first lab in 6 months. And we say, wonderful. So it really is that ability to pace yourself and to not push. And the survival stress will bubble up, but you want to understand that that's actually good. But can you have your capacity maintain by actually taking tons of rest, resourcing a ton? Does anybody want to, Bernadette, please? Oh, I have to unmute you. There we go.
Thank you. The other thing I would say is jump in the boat. So you have everybody in Smartbody, SmartMind in this boat. And the beauty of it is all of them are healing you when you are just in the boat. You don't have to participate the first week or the third week or any of the weeks, but just you being there does something. So when I was in it the first year, I was incredibly disconnected. So my physical body was in the boat and all of this stuff is coming at me. And I felt I was drowning, yet I knew I needed to be in there. So on some level, it was doing something to me without me participating a whole lot. You know, I really just was not able to track or to participate very much. But yet the bigger draw was everyone else's experience and their voices and their ability to show up and sound shaky or nervous or whatever it was. I was gaining from that. And I didn't even realize that. That's hindsight. Looking back, I'm like, wow, that was amazing to just be there in the boat. That's it. That's all you have to do the first round. So there's no pressure other than just show up.
Thank you, Bernadette. Yeah, Darla, you want to follow up?
Sorry, I think the only thing there I am. The only thing I would add to that is the beauty of Smartbody SmartMind is you're in it as long as you need to be in it. It's a lifetime thing. As long as Smartbody SmartMind is going, you get to come back as often as you need to. I do it every time, and every time I do it different. So it really doesn't matter. You got to go at your own pace. And that's the thing that I love about it the most is it's completely different from any other kind of education you ever get, where there's a timeline and you have to do this, and the steps and all that stuff, which is how we've all been trained in school. Smartbody SmartMind is completely opposite. You learn to listen to yourself and do it in your own time.
Thank you. Great follow-up to this. And again, whoever wants to answer this from Brian asks, SBSM is an online work at your own pace program. How did the panelists find aspects of the program that helped them feel as though they were not alone as they went through SBSM? So I saw Kaye nodding to that. Do you have anything to say about that, Kaye? Yeah.
I think I have to speak to the concept of co-regulation, that the container that you're in. I know that's a well-used phrase at the moment, but it's so, I don't know how you did it, Irene. I'm an educationalist. I don't know how you produced a curriculum that is titrated. You can do as much or little as you want, but also you and your team hold the container that we're co-regulating with your, well, I don't know whether this is true or not, Irene. I do feel like I received a really stable nervous system to work with of your whole collective. So I was never alone from the start. And from my perspective, I downloaded the audios, and for 2 years, your voice was my co-regulator doing your voice is just so regulating for me. And I think we just developed that relationship with the content. So from that perspective, I was never alone, because I was quite, well, I didn't speak in any of the live groups at all for about 2 or 3 years. So, but then there is those people who like to regulate as part of a group. As Darla said, we're in it together. And as Bernadette said, we're in the boat together. And there's that common vision and energy of movement towards healing, and the collective takes it with you, take you with them. I never felt alone at all, even though I was on the opposite side of the world to most of the participants at the start. I hope that answers.
Yes, thank you. And so I'll actually speak to that. And of course, if anybody has any other questions for anyone specifically in the panel, please pop them into the chat, or if it's a specific question, please do that. One of the parts that is less talked about in this world is the energetic, is the quality of building a resonant field. Some might say this taps into more spiritual source energy, and I don't want to, put words out that might not make sense for some, but I always liken it to, and this is going to sound crazy, many of us have watched the movie Star Wars. We know who Yoda is, and Luke, and the power of the Force. And, Princess Leia knew when Han Solo died, she felt it. There was this, and, even as I said that, my head gets a little tingly because I'm resonating with that truth. And what often isn't talked about in really good healing work and empathy is energetically connecting. There is a field, a resonance, some might call it quantum. And one of I think the attributes of how myself and my team have really polished the curriculum is we are very constrained in our boundaries. We are very specific in how we release things. You get 2 emails a week, nothing more. The labs are consistent. We try to make sure there are no typos. Watch, someone's going to find a typo now. The periods are all there. The T's are crossed. The I's are dotted. So there's just this cleanliness and hygiene of how we produce and put out the material. And you don't know this, but the moderation team, we meet with them and we talk to them. And when they are typing their response to you, their job is to stay regulated. They're not just putting out an answer willy-nilly on their phone. They go in to moderate. And if a moderator is off that day, or if they're having a stressful day or something, because that happens, they don't do their shift. They don't show up because they're not in that space. So you're also getting a highly attuned presence on the other side. And then if we really think about it, I never met any of these people who had all these shifts and changes. They did the work on their own in connection with the content, the reading. And we have certain resources, like some people love to read a book, a spiritual book, a Bible, something that offers them presence. And that's you and text and information that you're taking in. So in a strange way, the content is offering you resource. That's that co-regulation piece that Kaye mentioned. So yeah, this is more than just a bunch of exercises that tune into your nervous system. There is deep intentionality in how I've created the work and how our staff work to ensure that it is delivered in a way that is clean and in good connection with source. So I think that's another reason why it has power to it. Magda and then Lauren.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the support on the website, there are so many places that you can reach out, that you can ask questions to the moderators, so the therapists, really practitioners that are highly trained. There are spaces for people to introduce themselves. There is a peer-to-peer thread. There is a thread for alumni. And, you know, I'm in 2 groups over, you know, different apps where we do somatic check-ins and we kind of, you know, cheer each other on and support each other, that have formed through the alumni or peer-to-peer thread. So there's really a lot. And for me, the first round, I wasn't very active in like those peer-to-peer connections, but it's always been so amazing to read other people's stories, and just like the introduction page where we can read where everyone's coming from, and you know, you can share as much or as little or nothing at all, as much as or as little as you wish. But for me, it's just been amazing. It's been touching, and I'm just in awe of so many people, and also to see how different we all are, that yes, we do have certain commonalities in maybe the challenges that we experience, but in the end, everyone's story is so different, and yet there we are, and we're doing this work and supporting each other. And again, you can engage as much as or as little as you want. And it's really also amazing for me because I've been, you know, over the years in many different educational spaces, not strictly for nervous system healing, but for like therapies or training or self-development. And this is hands down the safest space that I've ever been in. And also reading, I've also been reading a lot of like the general questions and how moderators answer, because I'm also interested in this education as a you know, a future practitioner. And it's just so beautiful because there's no ego. Like sometimes, you know, we ask questions from activation, we might be a bit more aggressive or doubtful or, you know, whatever it is. And I've never ever read anything that would be in any way shaming, guilt tripping, gaslighting. That's the thing I forgot to say in my sharing. So I would love to add it now, because a lot of us have mentioned talk therapy, so different types of psychotherapy. And while I believe that can be helpful, my experience is that I have been gaslit and I have been traumatized by therapists as well. And the beauty of this work is you cannot be gaslit. Like it cannot happen, because it's just you and your system and your body and the environment you're in. And someone mentioned Irene's voice as I think Kaye, as being like really regulating. For me, yes, it's the tone of voice, it's the tempo, but it's the language Irene uses in those audios. It's so, what's the word, curated, like it's so neutral. It's so amazing to be doing a practice, and for the person who's, you know, guiding you to say, you might be asking yourself if it's the right way, you know, if you're doing it the right way. Yes, you are. You know, you might notice this or not. Both are fine. There's no right or wrong answer. So there's just such beautiful modeling of neutrality and curiosity and safety that I have never ever found anywhere else. So yeah, that also helps in feeling held and not alone.
Thank you, Magda. Lauren.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to what Irene said, still on the question of just not feeling alone and like the connection within the group. I agree with what everyone else has said, is just as far as like the connection within the group container itself. But to speak to what Irene said about, there's this like greater connection that I have received, where it's just like because it's not relating to life so much from my head and from this like place of protection anymore, where I feel this like deep connection with life. So I think for so long I felt this sense of like aloneness in life. And now, even when I am alone, I don't feel that alone. Like there's just a deeper connection to everything because I'm in my body and actually able to feel into that. And yeah, so I just wanted to add that to it. I think that's one of the greatest benefits and things that I've received from it is just connection to everything, you know. So yeah.
Thank you, Lauren.
Mhm.
Following up, again, we still have a little time for questions. So if anybody has a quick one, pop it in. What Magda was saying about the non-gaslighting thing. One term that I've heard recently from a new mentor is the concept of, he would say, sacred neutral. So really, yes, there are dualities in the world, but when it comes to teaching, whether it's a child, an adult, ourselves, how can we be really neutral in a sacred way? Just like there's no such thing as a positive or negative emotion. That verbiage has destroyed us in so many ways because we think positive is happy and anger is negative, or is positive and anger is negative. And it's just not true. You don't say that to a mother bear who's protecting her cubs when she's fighting and defending, you know, a wolf off of her babies. She's not thinking, oh, this is a negative emotion. She's thinking she's not even thinking, she's in action. This is survival. So there is a neutrality in how I teach. I don't know where I got that from. I think a lot of it is because I was blessed to have parents who never shamed me ever, who never hit me, you know, thanks mom and dad. I had other traumas that they inflicted on me without them realizing, and that's not really their fault. But yeah, I was blessed to never be wired into that. And so it does allow me to speak in a way that's very clear and just neutral. And if you've been watching me for a long time, how I speak here is the same way I speak to my husband when we're having dinner. It's the same way I speak when I'm teaching my higher level mentees. And it's the same way that I teach when I'm on my videos and vlogs. So this is what we want. We want to just be who we are all the time and not change ourselves based on the context. And it's also what I hear when I hear the alums speak. There is a neutrality in their voice too, and it shows how that regulation is there. And then the other thing I want to say that Lauren, what was it? Yeah, yes. One thing that occurs when we start to become more regulated, and I heard this earlier in this career of doing this online work, people will say, I feel more human. I feel more human. I don't know what that means, but I feel more human. And then people will also say, I'm feeling more spiritual, but I'm not even religious. And I think what's happening there is as we become more grounded in our biology, it allows this very unique part of us as humans with this higher brain. I believe in a soul, you know, it allows that to connect more to this other place that is very hard to connect to when we're living in survival mode all the time. And so a natural ignition of our personal spark starts to occur. And that shows up differently for us, for people, you know, and I think that is another thread I see. And that makes us feel less alone, as Lauren said. And one of the pieces that we saw when we did a little bit of a scientific study with the SBSM curriculum a couple of years ago with a university, one thing that came out was people felt less isolated after the 12 weeks. They felt less alone. They were better at being with themselves. They knew they were alone, but they didn't feel alone. And when you can connect to your physiology and the earth in a different way, you can do a lot just by yourself. You can do a lot with yourself. And so it also helps with a lot of the isolation that we live in these days, you know, living by ourselves, not in community, not in family systems, which makes sense because for so many of us, our family systems are not healthy, right? And we're looking for those new family systems. But in the meantime, you are your own family system. And there's a lot of joy and healing that occurs with that. I'm not seeing any other questions. We will be doing more questioning periods over the next little while. Seth and I did a long form talk, my husband, Seth, on kids dysregulation and trauma. It's all on YouTube. I did a longer Q&A and general overview of what SBSM is on Tuesday. Again, this is all on YouTube, so you can find those replays there. On Monday, we'll do another panel with another group of folks who have gone through, many of you have gone through my beta program, which is the birthing process. It's the inception really of a practitioner training that I'm working on, that we're working on. So we'll have more of those alumni and mentees on Monday for a panel just like this on Zoom. And then on Tuesday, we'll do a final Q&A. And on Tuesday is our last day for registration. Does anyone here on the panel have a burning share that they're getting hot because they want to say it? So let me know and we'll hear from you. Bernadette.
Yes. So what's burning in me is this, Irene.
Yes.
Because of all of this work, I am no longer looking for an outcome.
Mm.
When I started with you, it was to cure my migraines. That was the driving force to do any of this work. Is this going to be the thing that heals me? I have shifted that mindset into a place of just being. So my mind is not racing. If I do these steps, if I take this program, will this fix my XYZ? I think you have a video on that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stressor involved with that. The hunt for the cure that caused so much dysregulation because there was never a find. Now I'm approaching life with just the allowance of being, like you said, a human being. And that has made all the difference in the world because I'm not on hyper alert of looking for the answer. It is just the truly coming back into my body and existing peacefully and joyfully versus I got to get somewhere. I got to get the answer. I got to get the healing. And that has allowed me to have the greatest freedom and, I don't know, the most optimism. So yeah, I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
The word that comes up for me is liberation. You're
Yes.
liberated, right?
Oh,
Your liberation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else have a burning thing that they want to share? Erin, we'll take a few moments to do this and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, kind of just off of what Bernadette said, I feel like the most beautiful thing about this work is that it allows you to have such a deep acceptance of what is. You know, for me personally, my journey health-wise has been since birth, and I have been able through this work to heal so much, but there's still a lot physically that I deal with. And there's a lot of ways that my life does not look conventionally like the average person for that reason. And I used to fight that so hard all the time. Like I used to try so hard to fit in with the status quo and, you know, feel like I could, I don't know, produce and all the time and be the way other people were. And what this work does is it gives you your life back, not necessarily in the way you thought it should look or has to look, but in the way that's so aligned with what you're needing and with basically what you, it's just a full connection to your mind, body, spirit, other people, the world around you. And it just, like Bernadette was saying, you're no longer searching for the answer or the quick fix or wondering how can I be more happy or how can I be more fulfilled or have meaning. It all comes to you when you're regulated and you're in your own body possibly for the first time ever. It's just the most magical feeling, you know, like I have had days where I physically don't even yet have capacity to like go somewhere, but because I'm so regulated and so present, I enjoy life more than I ever knew was possible. And so I just, really felt like sharing that as well in case anyone can relate. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much, Erin. Yay. Okay, Magda.
Yeah, to piggyback off Erin, I'm about to turn 36 next week, and I've done a lot of cool stuff in my life, like travel, did stuff and so on. But in a way, it truly feels like I'm just beginning my life in a way, because it's the beginning of the life of truly coming off of all the survival energy, and just being able to just be and to let things come instead of pushing and struggling and striving all the time and demanding of myself and demanding of others. It's a blessing. It's pretty magical. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Last chance, everyone. Okay. The final thing I want to say that hit me when all of you were speaking is, when we're healing specific things, it will be very myopic. We are focused on our symptoms, and that's important, right? We don't want to be, living with migraines, living with chronic fatigue. And that's important. So we work at the bottom level and we work our way up, we build foundation. But imagine this, the world that we are living in here on planet Earth, it has some struggles. And the struggles are there because of humans. And there's no shame or blame in that. It's just the way it is. But as Magda said, when we get more regulated, the push, the stress, the intensity, it shifts. And so the more nervous systems on this planet that become regulated, the more that does ripple out to how we take care of the planet. And it's a pretty cool planet to be on. I like it here. I don't really want to go anywhere else. So that's another element that I think is more macro, but it does start, as cliche as it is, it starts with each individual. And then that individual process feeds the immediate family system, the new babies, the new humans, the kids we teach, as many of our students here are doing, the people we might work with as practitioners, and then it just ripples and ripples and ripples. So every person has a part to play, I feel, in keeping this beautiful home beautiful, and it starts with us. So that is my final word for today. Like I said, we'll be having another great alumni panel on Monday. We've done a few of these in the past too, so they're also on YouTube. So if you're thirsty to meet a few more alum who weren't here today, because we obviously have many, go back and look in the archives, the playlist for Smartbody SmartMind on my YouTube channel, and you'll find them. Thank you so much to all of you lovely ladies for being here and talking and sharing so openly and raw your story, and that you're still working on this stuff. That's the other thing. You're still working on this stuff. I'm still working on this stuff. It is an ongoing process, but it does get easier, and it becomes joyful to work on the sticky, tricky stuff. Thank you to everybody that was here live. Thank you to everyone who watched the recording afterwards. Thank you, Bonnie, for keeping the chat clean and taking notes of what we were talking about. And thanks to my whole team, who many of you never see. And thank you to all my teachers, even those who told me that I couldn't do what I'm doing. It's made me push a little harder, and I am grateful for that. So adios, everyone. Good night, good morning, whenever you're listening to this, and we will see you maybe on the next panel, or maybe in Smartbody SmartMind next week. All right, bye everyone.